Klamer played a pivotal role in Carpe Diem, but one person had to get absolutely soaked in order to shoot this scene. We'd hired an actor named Klamer for a part in Carpe Diem. You'll remember him from Season 3, Episode 18, when he acted in a previous film, Broken Vow. He was a student at Whittier College who had a large personality, someone whose voice filled whatever room he walked into, and he ended up getting some online fame for that interview he did with QCTV that I talked about in Season 4, Episode 8. It's been over 13 years since that interview, and in 2024 I got a message from someone asking if he was the same guy from Carpe Diem. In a lot of ways, he was the most well-known actor from that movie, but unfortunately he wasn't known for acting, even though he was quite good. But after we got denied to shoot in Club 88, we just started shooting in public places around campus that didn't have much foot traffic and didn't tell anyone we were filming there just to be on the safe side. On March 13th, Alex Hackworth got a shot of my character chasing after Daniel Tao in the same place we'd shot Aaron and Ayesha Perry Iqbal walking, that area below the old science building. It only took us 6 minutes to shoot a few takes and angles, so that was easy, and we color graded it to look more like nighttime in post, but we had a bigger scene on the way. On the night of April 6th, I met up with Colin and Klamer to shoot the ending of the Parisian strip club scene, which we shot on campus by the CI. Because it was a night scene, I'd asked Professor Rich Cheatham if I could borrow his Canon 5D Mark III for the shoot, which handled low light significantly better than my Canon 60D, and luckily, he agreed. In that scene, Colin's character Jack Card is escorted out of the club as the absinthe kicks in harder than expected, and I wanted to showcase the trippy nature of that experience. You might remember the coat of many pockets that Klamer was famous for wearing. Well, we found out that he had that same coat in 4 different colors, so we had him bring all of them so that the shots from Jack's perspective could show him appearing differently as the effects of his substance use started to set in. We also had Klamer bring a number of objects that he could be holding to push this scene to the border of absurdity. Klamer essentially played himself, even keeping his name and bringing his own props and costumes, but I think it fit with the comedic tone of the film in a lot of ways, and I was happy to have him join the cast in order to smooth out some of the transitions between scenes and also to flush out Jack Card's character arc. We blocked out what was going to happen and went over the lines with scripts in hand, and then we tried it for real. We got our first shot of the night at 10:03 p.m., a test shot to see if this scene would work here. It wasn't quite what I was looking for though, so I changed the angle so the audience wouldn't see where they were coming out of, and changed the color temperature and pushed in a little bit so the actors were more prominent in the frame. By 10:20, we had 4 takes of the wide shot, not including the test, so I zoomed in and changed angles to get Jack's close-ups. I got 5 takes of that angle, and then I flipped around to get Klamer's close-ups. But after the first 2 takes, I had him change costumes in between each of the other takes so that we had coverage of him delivering the same lines in 4 different colors of coat. And to further distinguish between the looks, he wore a hat for take 3, a masquerade-style mask for take 4, and held a mannequin's head for take 5. We got distracted for a minute though because Colin had brought a semi-broken lighter that let out a lot more lighter fluid at the time than it was designed for.
You can firebend after the show. There are droplets of blue coming out. It's like a fountain of fire.
That's because you blew on it. Or maybe not.
Nope. Why are you continuing to do it? It's like a splash zone.
But we finished the 5th and final take of Klamer's coverage. However, by then I realized the scene had changed a little bit from what we'd originally shot in the wides, and I wanted to make sure things matched up in the edit. It was now 11:07 p.m., so I knew I couldn't keep us out there too much longer, so I just got another 2 takes of the wide shot now that the improvised lines were more set in stone. To finish off the dialogue section, I did 1 take of the whole scene through with a roaming camera, just in case I caught something cool along the way.
You got the fairies and the sprites and the unicorns and the dragons, and best of all, you got the LSD courtesy of the nice people upstairs.
The LSD.
Then I got 2 takes of Jack running away at the end and realized we could stop shooting now, but instead we got a close-up of the "those are your hands" bit because I thought it was funny and deserved its own shot. Then at 11:20, we got our last shot of the night, the Martini Shot, called that because in the old days, actors could start drinking as soon as they were done filming. It was Klamer's coverage of "Those Are Your Hands." It was fun to shoot with Klamer because of his energy and phrasing, but could be difficult too because sometimes he'd change movements or improvise lines from take to take. But the thing was, sometimes those improvisations were the funniest lines in the scene, so it was definitely worth it, even though it made editing it together a little more difficult. We shot the other scene with Klamer a couple days later. Late at night on April 9th, I brought Colin, Klamer, and Becky, who I believe was Klamer's girlfriend at the time, into an alley in Uptown Whittier and shot the scene in which Jack Card meets Klamer on the streets of London. We wanted to make sure the streets were empty, so at 10:44 p.m. we got the first shot of the night, one of Jack Card running into Klamer and asking if he needed a hand carrying a bunch of bottles of alcohol that had some sort of packing tape to seal them instead of corks. That was Klamer's own personal touch because he'd brought those bottles from his room. We got 2 shots of that, and then I repositioned and we got coverage from the other side. Every take was a little different, so rather than do multiple takes from each angle, I decided it was probably best to get a lot of different angles to cut to. So after that one take, I got a mid-close-up of Klamer.
Doing chillfully, man. A little better now. Name's Klamer.
And then I got a walking 2-shot of Jack Card and Klamer walking down the alley. If we'd had a higher budget, this would have been a dolly shot or a Steadicam shot, but since we didn't have the ability to get either of those, I just had them walk slowly as they improvised what they were talking about, and I walked backwards while holding the camera, doing my best to keep it as steady as possible by taking very small footsteps. At 10:58 p.m., I had them stop when they stepped into a more well-lit area so I could get a mid-close-up of Jack Card for the end of the scene. Then we got the final shot at that location, a mid-close-up of Klamer for the ending dialogue of the scene.
Now I got myself a Booze Sherpa. It's fantastic.
The ending was shot as though the alley ended in a park or that they kept walking to one, and that was the next part we were going to shoot. So with that done, we walked to Central Park in Uptown Whittier to shoot the rest, which was Jack and Klamer drinking on a statue in a park in London. As a quick side note, if you see that little marker just to the right of Central Park that says Hocus Pocus Devil's House, that's actually where part of the famous movie Hocus Pocus was shot. So we were shooting just across the street from a famous film landmark. I thought the statue of John Greenleaf Whittier in the park looked European enough to anyone that didn't know Whittier, California. And not many people do know Whittier, California, even less when you take into account that a large part of this film's anticipated audience was European. So I figured that was fine. Luckily, the streets were dead silent by 11:26 p.m., and we got the first shot there without any interruptions, a close-up of Jack Card sitting at the base of the statue. But we weren't actually using the bottles yet, just in case someone walked by and called Whittier PD to report public intoxication, so it wasn't quite the full scene from that angle. At 11:30, I switched to Klamer's close-up, and after 2 takes of that, I decided it was time to use the bottles now that I'd gotten coverage of everything I could without them. So I set back up for a 3rd take of Jack's close-up, and he actually used the bottle for that one.
Sunny wine. Kicks ass. Enjoy yourself.
By Thor and Zeus.
Then I quickly reset and got a 3rd take of Klamer's close-up where he used the bottle too. However, at 11:39 p.m., the Central Park sprinklers turned on, and the camera was in the path of one of the sprinklers. In that moment, Becky became my hero. She took one for the team and stood in front of the stream of water to protect the camera so that we could get the shot we needed from that angle. And she was drenched by the sprinklers by the time we got it. I took a quick clip of her doing that, but we were very grateful for her for using her body to protect the camera. I got a wide shot of Jack and Klamer on the statue's base doing the whole scene, while Becky took the sprinkler water like a champ. But behind the scenes, Colin and Klamer had started laughing just a little too much, probably starting to feel the effects of the alcohol by then, so I knew it was time to wrap things up.
Camera.
I got 1-2 shot of Jack and Klamer doing the whole scene, and then grabbed a shot of the camera following the bottle of alcohol, or mead, as Klamer handed it to Jack. At 11:45 p.m., we got the Martini Shot of the night, a 2nd take of the camera following the bottle of alcohol as Klamer handed it to Jack, and that was a total of 5 shots that included a swig of alcohol. So the actors were a little buzzed by that point, and Becky was soaked to the skin and freezing.
Good person, man. You're great in this game show. Oh, that is so.
I'm good.
Right in the face. Right in the face.
Just to let you know, we love you forever and ever for doing this.
Yeah, you're a great individual.
So we packed up and headed back to campus, concealing the bottles in a backpack, and I was happy that we hadn't been stopped by anyone and had gotten the shot without incident. That was a wrap on Klamer's character in the film, a small but important part, because it both showed what Jack was doing when he left to go out on his own, and justified how he was able to get out of the Parisian strip club situation. If there was a lesson I learned from that experience, it was that sometimes the best moments are when you just allow people to interact with each other, because the funniest moments hadn't been scripted. I suppose a second lesson is that a dedicated woman can save your ass, because I could not have afforded to buy another camera if that one had gotten wet. Fun fact, for Whittier Scholars class, I wrote an essay called What is Identity that had been written on April 2nd. I basically identified memory as the #1 key factor, and even gave a definition at the end of the essay. Identity, a combination of parental influence, cultural and economic upbringing, memory, and individual choice that blend to form a basis of habit and thought that the mind uses as a reference when making future decisions, be they conscious or subconscious. This is kinda creepy in hindsight, because based on that definition, I would lose a lot of my identity in less than 8 months. But tune in next week to see how we remade an unusable scene.
And go for it.
So what are you thinking about going after this, Jack?
Paris. Taking a train down to Dover, ferry to Calais, another train to Paris.
Huh. Don't say. I'm Parising myself in a soon. Gonna be a bouncer there, don't you know?
Dude, we should meet up.
Absolutely, man. Hey, you should try some of this. The, coveted by the Norse gods, don't you know? Mead. Also known by the Greeks as ambrosia. It's honey wine. Kicks ass. Enjoy yourself.
By four and Zeus.